yesterday.
It was Mel. It was Mel's recent mock draft.
Yes.
A little bit surprised by what I saw from Mel.
I was
I'm not going to lie.
very bit surprised by Mel, his prediction for the Bears. Now, Ashton Genty was already off the board.
He went to the Raiders, right?
Yes. He went to the Raiders at 6. And that left the Bears with what I thought would be a fairly easy selection. And also, I should mention, Tyler Warren was also off the board in Mel's most recent draft. Although, maybe
I can read this to you. This was Mel. This is how he sets up his board at this particular time. Lord knows that this will change, okay?
Yeah.
But I'll give it to you. Mel's a Titan in the business, and I say that because the Tennessee Titans, not because it's only true, but it segues to the Tennessee Titans with the number 1 overall pick, and Mel has them selecting Cam Ward,
real quick,
quarterback out of Miami.
And let me offer the one important disclaimer, because I think this is critical to this mock draft. Mel said, here's my current thinking on how round 1 could look based on what I'm hearing from exec scouts and coaches in the league, which is important because Mel will do his own personal draft, but oftentimes it's like his thought. This is based on what he's hearing.
Right.
So go ahead.
Number 2, the Cleveland Browns will draft Abdul Carter, outside linebacker, pass rusher from Penn State. He has the Giants selecting Shedeur Sanders, quarterback from Colorado.
Interesting.
But good for us.
Yes.
Because we want as many quarterbacks taken as humanly possible before 10. Gives you leverage. We don't need a quarterback. And so far, based on what Mel has suggested, 2 have gone in the first 3 picks.
Pushes another good player down the board for the Bears.
Amen. At number 4, Mel has Travis Hunter going to the Patriots. At number 5, Mel has Mason Graham going to the Jacksonville Jags.
The Michigan defensive tackle that I know a lot of Bears fans are hoping can somehow.
Jags need some offensive line help too, don't they?
They do, yeah.
He has the Raiders, as you mentioned, at 6, drafting running back Ashton Genty from Boise State. Also something that I would be just fine with seeing. He has the Jets taking Tyler Warren, tight end from Penn State, at 7.
Giving Justin Fields a weapon.
Yes. At 8, he has the Carolina Panthers taking Jalen Walker, linebacker, pass rusher out of Georgia. Number 9, this is where the surprises come. I heard Shea mention this a day or so ago about how Jackson Dart seems to be appearing in a lot of mocks, especially high. Not just in the first round, but fairly high in the first round.
Well, like top 10.
Yeah. He's got the Saints taking Jackson Dart at 9.
Well, and if you look at it, if it's going to happen, if Jackson Dart is actually going to be pushed up that far on the draft boards, the Saints are a spot where you could see it happening because with Sanders off the board already in Mel's mock here, the Saints have a huge issue with the cap. They don't have any flexibility, and if they're going to, they're stuck with Derek Carr basically, and so if they're going to find any path forward with a young quarterback, they may want to do so this year, drafting in the top 10 if they think Jackson Dart could be.
Well, I was going to say, and not if you think he's a second or third rounder, but if you believe he's worth a top 10 pick, have at it. I love seeing it. That's 3 quarterbacks going before the Bears, which I never would have guessed.
Well, we get Kyle McCord there too, huh? How about let's make it 4? Let's get Kyle in there.
Yeah, that ain't going to happen.
Well, at least
you know what? Who knows? But
so this sets up nicely. Of all the names I've heard I have not heard you say that an offensive lineman has come off the board yet. So this sets up very nicely for the Chicago Bears, and Mel has them selecting
outside linebacker from Georgia, Michel Williams. And Mel says, I've gone offensive line for the Bears in both of my previous mock drafts, but that box was checked in free agency. Chicago traded for guards Joe Tooney and Jonah Jackson, then signed center Drew Dahlman. And while the Bears also added Dayo Adengbo and Grady Jarrett on the defensive front, they could still use someone like Williams coming off the edge. They ranked in the middle of the pack last year. This is important information. The Bears, that is, they ranked middle of the pack in sacks with 40, but they were 24th in pass rush win rate. Williams is a toolsy prospect who can beat blockers with his speed or power. He missed time with an ankle early last season, but still picked up 5 sacks. Given a little more time to develop, he could be a really solid NFL edge rusher. I believe he fits the profile for the type of edge rusher that Dennis Allen likes. My guess is he's tall and rangy. Supposed to be a really good athlete, but I think he ran a a sub-prime 40-yard dash in his pro day, right?
Yeah.
Like a 4.76.
Correct. Yeah. Was it 4.78, 4.74, somewhere in that range? And if that's the case, I'm not as excited about the possibility of the Bears taking Michel Williams.
Do you have a scouting report on Williams, Tyler?
Well, I heard Shea, and maybe it was Charlie too, talking a little bit about this, but like he was a part of he's been a part of a really good Georgia defensive line over the last couple of years.
Charlie made the point about
Nolan Smith. Yeah, and it might just be a case of like everyone eats type of deal. But like you brought up his measurables. He's 6'5", 260. So that's exactly what you're looking for from a Dennis Allen standpoint.
right. Comparable to what a Dengbo is. I think that Dengbo has certainly more. He's heavier because they do kick him in, or they believe they can kick him in to play the 3 technique as well.
So his athleticism score too, like this is something that also is you'd think would be a little bit higher, especially if you're drafting like a toolsy type of guy.
Whole
but
physical freak.
He's ranking 9th among the edge rusher prospects.
And at this point, he would have been the 2nd highest drafted edge rusher. Well, actually, a 3rd after Jalen Walker, his teammate at Georgia.
Yeah. So Carter and Walker would be off the board. That he'd be the 3rd.
So he was ranked 9th in there
from an athleticism standpoint. But like, part of why you're going to draft him is because he's a freak athlete. I probably don't want the 9th rated athleticism guy if you're going to be taking that type of swing at 10 on the board.
Now, what's interesting to me is at 11, he has the 49ers taking Armand Membo.
Yes.
From Missouri. Who has climbed up the draft ladder as well based on a lot of his workout stuff, right?
Yeah, when you look at, in Mel's most recent mock, Will Campbell was not off the board yet either. And I think, Will Campbell, there's some questions about whether or not he'll be a left tackle or a tackle in the league, or if he will be someone who kicks inside as a guard. Because
Mel has him going to the Dolphins at 13.
So in this scenario, Mel has the Bears passing on both Will Campbell and Armand Membo from Missouri, who both, I believe, some people think Will Campbell's the better prospect, or he would be the guy who would step in right away and might be more of a finished product, but Membo has more upside based on his physical skills. So either way, though, I don't know if Michel Williams is somebody who I love the idea of the Bears taking instead of if both those guys are on the board.
I don't see Mel having his next offensive lineman he has going to Houston at 25 is Josh Simmons from Ohio State, who I believe had a torn patella tendon that had to be surgically fixed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even see he's got Kelvin Banks tackle from Texas going to the Chiefs at 31. So if things fall the way that Mel has predicted, you're going to have options. I think that would that not be best case scenario? Maybe best case scenario is, if Mason Graham would fall to you, that would make it easy. But I think based on how I feel, I don't want to see them draft a running back at 10. I don't really want to see them draft a tight end at 10. I want to see them have the pick of the litter, so to speak, on the offensive line at 10. And as Mel's mock lays out, you would have that. But yet he has them taking, an athletic Michel Williams pass rusher from Georgia.
I've always looked at them at the draft based on what the Bears have done over the last week in free agency. And, I've kind of come to the assumption that I thought Membo is going to be off the board. If he's available when the Bears are drafting, I don't know, man. He looks like based on his physical skill set and everything that you could be getting with him as you're locking in your left tackle for years to come, that's the player that I think I would hope that the Bears would draft.
He says Membo is my top-ranked tackle in the class. I see him sliding in on the right side in San Francisco, where he started 30 games in college. He also could play guard at a high level early in his career. However, the transition to left tackle down the road. If that's how he projects, boy, that to me would be very enticing.
Would the Bears, too, ever entertain the idea of, potentially having Darnell Wright play left tackle this year, if that was the scenario? Like, I don't know. I have no idea what Ben Johnson's thinking. I see you making a face a little bit.
I think this would be his 3rd year in the league, right?
Yeah.
I think you'd let him settle in at right tackle.
I'm with you. I agree. I'm just throwing out possible scenarios.
I would let him stay there.
Yeah, and honestly, if you wanted someone like Membo, who you looked at as your long-term left tackle, wouldn't it just be like, okay, go out there and just get familiar with the position so that we don't have to switch you down the road here? Let's just let you get acclimated right away at left tackle, if that's the way you envisioned him long-term.
Yeah, look, I mean, they were all, as always, you're throwing darts. You don't know what's going on in Ben Johnson's head. We don't really, Dennis Allen has a long track record in the league, but I don't know what he's thinking up there. My hope is that they're going to focus on continuing to build up front with offensive and defensive linemen. Look, I mean, Joe Thuney's not going to play forever, right? You don't know really whether or not Braxton Jones will take that next step, so you're going to still need help on the offensive line.
I can't. Maybe, just maybe, Braxton Jones could be the solution this year while he's under contract. But I can't believe that they feel like Braxton Jones is the long-term solution unless they go forward with him this year and he plays dramatically better, right? Like that's
I would think if you're
at
more stable in the interior, maybe the residual will be that Braxton Jones will also have a better season. I think Braxton Jones actually. I mean, if you follow PFF and some other,
he graded out okay.
Yeah, I mean, the eye test tells you one thing, and I think the grades tell you another thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd still be looking for them to acquire beef.
Yeah, I'm still not sold on Braxton Jones being the long-term solution at left tackle.
Who are you more confident in, Braxton Jones at left tackle, or Dio Adengbo as a pass rusher? Because that's kind of what it comes down to for your starter, right? Are you going to take a starting pass rusher or a starting left tackle at that 10 spot, or right tackle at that 10 spot?
Based on what they spent, it better be Dio. They paid for him to be,
they gave him $32 million guaranteed
as the edge rusher there, opposite Montez Sweat. He's going to wear number 55, by the way. He's taking Lance Briggs' old number. They announced that today, so.
But what's more valuable in the NFL, the $32 million that you gave him or the 10th overall pick in a draft?
Oh, yeah. By far, it's definitely going to be if you're
if you have a cost-controlled difference maker at 10, I mean, I think you've answered, and especially at an important position, I would say that would be that would be the most valuable thing you could do.
I guess, is Michel Williams on par with an elite-level pass rusher? That's the question, right? If they're drafting him there, they believe he will be.
Look, if you have the pick of the litter, as I said earlier, at offensive line, at 10, I think you have to take an offensive lineman.
Yeah.
Depending on what has transpired leading up to 10.
Yeah.
I would definitely look to their offensive line if, in fact,
Membo or Will Campbell are on the board.
Yeah.
And I don't know, what does Ben Johnson and Ryan Poles think about Will Campbell? If they think of him as a guard, I could see them not necessarily wanting to invest in him because they have just signed or traded for Joe Thuney. They've signed and traded for Jonah Jackson as well. So I could see where if they thought Campbell is a guard, they don't want to invest in him because they just have invested so much in those two players. But if you can see Campbell being a tackle or if you like Membo, I'd have a hard time picking Michel Williams, whose production in college, on those Georgia defenses, which have elite athletes running around all over the place. I don't know. The production for Michel Williams hasn't really.
Well, how would you at this point, after adding what they've added on the offensive line on the interior and adding a Adengbo and Grady Jarrett, they added a tight end, they've added some other pieces as well. Zacchaeus, they've added as a wide receiver. They added the kicker.
Devin Duvernay, who I haven't mentioned, but yeah.
What are you prioritizing at this point now? I mean, if there's still there are positions of need or places where you would like to upgrade things.
I think it's left tackle, it's edge rusher, pass rush help, and running back. I think those three.
Well, you're an Ashton Genty guy, so
you're... No. Please, I do need to clarify. If Ben Johnson convinced Ryan Poles that all the work they've done now in free agency has set them up to be in position where they can challenge for the division, and he thinks they're really just a bell cow back away, and he wants and he views Ashton Genty as a difference maker, the likes of like a Bijan Robinson. I say that because I think he's more like he's not as explosive as Jahmyr Gibbs.
I would say this too. Like if you ask me who is going to at the end of their career have a better, more well-rounded career, Ashton Genty or Bijan Robinson, I think I'd go with Bijan Robinson.
I agree, but I do think Genty, in terms of running backs who have come out recently, I think he's close to the same level as a Bijan Robinson.
Well, listen, if Ben Johnson, if that's the route they go, I'm not turning in my Bears fan club card.
Yeah.
But I will ride with it. It's not where I would want them to go.
You know how I understand that there's a lot of good running backs in this draft, and so if you say, we've got the edge rusher or the left tackle staring us in the face at 10, then yes, by all means, draft that player, and then take a look at what's available to you with one of your 2 second-round picks. I think that's the best way to approach it.
I'm just hoping as well, look, you added a Dengbo, you gave him money. I just hope they're honest and they're sincere about evaluating the guys that are currently on the roster, even the young guys, Booker and Hardy. Don't keep them in a rotation, just hoping they can. If Dennis Allen doesn't believe that these are legitimate future difference-making type players, maybe one of them is a rotation guy, but don't let them be the reason why you would shy away from drafting an edge rusher in this draft, if one's available.
For sure. Yeah. No, if
I'm not ignoring a valuable edge rusher because I've got Hardy or Booker on my roster.
Yeah. No, for sure. Yes, you cannot have – the Eagles have proven to you cannot have enough on your roster, right? Just keep when you think you have enough, go ahead and draft some more, add some more via free agency. You probably won't regret it if you do that because – it's just with the rotation, the way it works in the NFL nowadays, there's nothing wrong with having as many possible pass.
This is what I would say as well. Again, referencing Mel's, first round mock. It's kind of how I've always felt about it. If it's good enough for the Patriots, it should be good enough for the Bears. Back in the day when Brady and Belichick were teamed up, if the 49ers, who are a run first football team, would draft Armand Membo, the offensive tackle out of Missouri, at 11 behind you?
Yes.
They run the ball better than you do or have historically. Ben Johnson's going to come in and hopefully change that. But if he's good enough for the 49ers, why wouldn't he be good enough for you at 10?
No,
that's how I would look at that
I would
position.
be kind of disappointed if Membo was on the board. I mean, and the Bears pass on it.
Can you envision what would be the only thing that would make you more happy on draft day, the first round, than what Mel has projected here? Carter's not getting to you.
No,
and let's suggest that you're not going to make a trade.
I think Mason Graham falling is kind of a pipe
I was
dream.
going to say that. Maybe that would be the dream come true. But in Mel's mock, you've got 3 quarterbacks going. You have Genty going at 6 to the Raiders. And you have Tyler Warren, the tight end, going to the Jets at 7. So the luxury items that you may be enticed to pick are now off the table.
Yeah.
Jalen Walker is a really good player, but is also a guy that's built exactly like Hassan Reddick, right? 6'1", 240 pounds.
Yeah, not as big. Yeah,
not one of those rangy edge rushers.
Yeah,
that Dennis Allen is more fond of.
Yeah, Williams is 6'5", 260. He's significantly bigger.
I mean, can you imagine a draft first round falling into place that would be more, I think, appealing to the Bears than what Mel has projected?
No, I think that would be a dream scenario.
Yeah, if Membo.
And if you're running to the podium to hand in the card, who's on your? Membo would be the name on my card.
Absolutely, I agree completely.
I would actually go Will Campbell.
Okay, Will Campbell. Maybe the ceiling isn't as high, or he's not the.
Or maybe you just can play left tackle, and this whole short arms as being something that's.
I think the more you dive into it, it's kind of like all right, sure, the measurables aren't ideal, but if you just watch it, he is the dude. He can play the position.
I can buy that for $1 as well. And that's the name you're running. Again, this would be the ideal scenario.
I will say this too. Think about it. I think a lot of people who scout say that Will Campbell, worst case scenario, you're going to have a guy who's going to lock in as a guard for a decade, and you'll be happy with it. And maybe, just maybe, he can handle left tackle, right? So,
well, guys are going to get hurt too, so you're going to have depth.
Yeah. So, I think if the worst case scenario is that you've grabbed a guy who could be a piece on the interior for a decade in Will Campbell, and maybe, just maybe, if the arm length isn't an issue, he could handle left tackle. That's not a bad situation. Like Peter Skoronski, the Northwestern kid who the Titans drafted. A lot of people wondered, could he be left tackle?
They kicked him into guard immediately.
They did. The Titans drafted him and plays him at guard immediately. But hey, if you're happy with a guy who you've got locked in there, it's not a terrible place to be, right?
Well, so here's hoping that Mel's mock becomes reality. Who was there? Was there somebody else who released their latest?
There were a couple actually. Tyler, real quick, let's. What were the other two mocks that had the Bears taking?
So PFF had him taking Donovan Ezeriku from
Boston
kid
from
College.
BC.
Yep,
he was the ACC Defensive Player of the Year.
Yep, he was getting after the quarterback, and then the ringer had him taking Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M.
Now he's a physical freak, right?
He's a guy that had very little production in college, right?
Right. He had 1.5 sacks each season in college.
How many guys really I think you're asking for trouble when you're drafting someone that high that has really no production.
I will say this about getting back to Michel Williams. He did lead Georgia in sacks as a true freshman when they won the national championship, their last national championship.
Yes.
Even though it was only 4.5, he was the leader on that team.
Well, listen,
and
again,
what is considered one of the greatest defenses in recent college football
Jalen
history.
Carter was on the team.
Look, who are you going to trust? Me or you or Tyler or Jack or Dennis Allen? If Dennis Allen says, hey, this is a guy that we should be drafting, he's going to be a difference maker in our defense, then, again, this is the honeymoon phase.
Yes.
Until proven otherwise, I think, at least from my perspective, I'm in the I'm going to ride with you phase.
Let's take a quick call before we get to Aki's A-list here. Rob is in Berwyn. What's going on, Rob? You're on Waddle and Silvy. Meller in for Silvy.
What's up, guys? We're ready to get a draft, but I was just wanting to say that, running back is not ideal at 10. I kind of agree with Waddle. As many concussions as he's had, I think he's still thinking pretty straight. Waddle said that it's either the quarterback or the people who chase the quarterback. And I'm a big fan of James Pierce because he's so fast. I think he ran a 4.4, 4.5. So I think that's kind of what the defense is missing. And I know Dennis Allen wants those big guys, but I think a fastball alternate is also going to be really quick because the quarterback's going to try to move and avoid these big guys, and you need that fast guy to come close in and to play.
Mel has, thanks for the call, Rob. Mel has Pierce going to the Lions.
In the late first round, yeah.
Yeah, I heard Shea talking about him today after watching him a little more closely.
Yep.
Very light. Said he's built more like a safety than he is a pass rusher.
Which is why he was able to run a 4.47 at the combine.
So he may be a guy that would struggle at the point of attack. But, again, I think when it comes to these edge rushers.
Pierce is listed at 6'5", 245.
Right. I would, again, we're living in a honeymoon phase. In Dennis Allen, I trust. If he says this is the guy, the position is a position of need, whether it's an offensive tackle or it's a pass rusher. I feel comfortable trusting Ben Johnson if he's looking at these offensive linemen, whoever he decides to choose at 10, if that's the route they go. And I believe in Dennis Allen's ability to evaluate guys and knows exactly what he wants in his defense. So I'm hoping that the mock that Mel put out most recently, I think it was yesterday, is I hope it comes to fruition.
It looks like there's going to be some good options on the board for the Bears, especially when you consider their weaknesses, at the left tackle and the edge rusher position. There should be some interesting name available for the Bears when they're drafting at 10 here in about a month or so, a little over a month from now.